So Senior was talking about critical, the nature of critical reading, the nature of critical writing, the need for something like that. So what I'll be doing in my session is we'll have a more practical approach. I plan to show something to you through the websites and all, but it seems like we don't have luck on our side this today. Before we move on to how to actually critically read, it's easy. It's very common to see in our surroundings talks about critically read these things, critically write on it. When you, especially when you go for an LLM program, or especially or you go for a PhD program, people keep saying this to you. Critically do, write critically, do it critically. So the point is, what exactly is critically? What do you mean by critically doing it? How do you critically analyze something? So my presentation today would be on actually doing it. On I'll let you know some of the techniques, tools that we use. We'll discuss about some of the methods that we can use while involving these critical thinking. All right. Before I move on with my presentation, just let me talk about how I came into the LJRF and LJRF voice. So I believe I joined LJRF in 2020 August. I was at KISAT at that time pursuing my research there. So I had a discussion with Safi sir. He's a teacher. He's one of my teachers at Government Law College Code, which is my alma mater. I He told me about these concepts. It sounds very interesting. I saw an advertisement calling for supervisors. I joined for their 1 week program. I mean 1 month program. So it was basically a internship program for students, law LLB students, and my role was to supervise them. We had a 30 days program including classes. They were supposed to submit assignments. They were also supposed to submit other critical writing and all those stuffs. So it was interesting for me, especially because I got to meet a lot of people through this. And it actually started as an ad hoc commitment, but then it's stuck around. I After the 30 days program, I moved into the LJRF's again teachers development program, which is actually uh, a comprehensive um, uh, 6 months program where we provide coaching for UGC NET exams and other similar exams. I was a part of the supervisor. I also a active participant of the UGC coaching itself. It was very helpful when I was preparing for um, my PhD entrance exams and all. Then later, I think in 2021, I moved into the LJRF voice, and I took charge as the LJRF voice editor chief. What I do in LJRF, or the structure. So what I when I came into LJRF voice was a concept. There is a website. People We had the editors here. They have been uploading articles. So what happened is that we what the first task before me was to create a structural organizational structure for LJRF voice. So the thing start I started by basically started by we sat together, all of the persons behind LJRF sat together, discussing on how to actually bring this into a fruitful venture. So we have at the end of the day, we have a structure here at LJRF Voice. We have an editorial board, we have a review board, and we also have an technical committee. An editorial board consists of basically the chief editor, the editors, and the members from the state and other chapters of LJRF itself. Then we have a review committee. You have been hearing about us for the last 2 days. I think we have a process of review here at LJRF Voice. No article submitted us would can go without a review process. So we have a review board which constitutes of legal faculties and legal experts across Kerala, and of course across India. We have some faculties working here in Mumbai and all. So we once the article overcomes or passes the initial review, it goes to the reviewer. The initial review is done by the editor itself, and then it goes to a review committee. And this reviewing is a tough process. If any of you have ever tried to publish an article in a serious journal, you will understand the niceties behind the review process, because sometimes it takes 2 reviews, 3 reviews to publish it. We thankfully we have a good team of reviewers. We get constant comments from the reviewers. We pass it on to the authors. Then they get back to us with the corrected one. We give it again, revert it to the reviewer for second round of reviewing it. Unless and until the reviewer okays it, we don't publish it. And we have a technical committee. It's especially important because we are online digital platform. So rather, I'll say it's the most important part of LJRF rather than even a chief editor. It is the most important part of the venture. So we have a technical committee which constitutes of 2 or 3 members of LJRF who assist all in the technical queries. So what I do in LJRF is I manage these things with my team. Since I have a very good team, my works are like a lot less than which is actually expected of me. We try to conceptualize, visualize programs that we can add on to the existing modes of communication. We also coordinate with other LGRF participants, like we have a specific committee for probation. So we try to work with them to create more content, to bring out relevant content. That exactly is why I still work here, or what gives me the happiness is that whatever I work on, I get the result. I'll tell you a very basic example. If you any of you have remembered, Justice V.R. Krishnayar has a home here in Ernakulam, Cochin. So there was a move to sell this property to a private entity. LJRF was got involved into this procedure. We started collecting data. We started getting information on why it's important to preserve that particular home. That the government should actually buy that home. Should actually buy that home and convert into something that would be aiding the probation literacy probation, and something that would aid the probation research. So we had to work 2-3 months on this particular issue, but at the end of the day, the government gave a proposal to buy this home from there, from the individual. The private investors backed out, and the government came with this proposal to buy the farm. So this particular thing, this is just an example. We also work on probation. I have seen works on probation where actually making difference rather than being something that we keep talking about. One thing that inspires me here at LJRF Voice is that we don't stop at sharing wisdoms and knowledge. We try to inculcate that into society. We try to make that changes there. So that is what has been giving me the motivation to stay here. That being said, let's move on to. All right. So that's the first point. Now let's move on to reading. We are talking about effective reading. Effective reading is a 4-step process or a 3-step process. These are the core points that I will be discussing today in this session. We'll go in detail to what to read, how to read, writing, and repeating these processes. So these things is the core points that you, at the end of today's session, just think back whether you got what I was talking about, or whether I have fulfilled my objectives here. Let's go. So reading is a three-step process. It starts with deciding on what to read.
Then you go to read, actually reading it and how it is being done. Then you have the final writing process. This is not a final process, but something you'll get to know it while we move on with the process, and you repeat the whole process. First stage of any kind of effective reading is knowing what to read. In order to know what you read, you have to know what do you want to know. This is again linked to the first slide we were talking about knowing, like, reading for pleasure. It's again, do you know what you're talking about? What do you want to answer? So this is more like a research question or a research problem you have. For example, let's take, you want to write about the hijab controversy that's currently happening. You want to talk critically, work on the Karnataka High Court's judgment. Again, the question is, on what perspective do you want? You see a lot of elements there. Is it about a quote appreciating the evidence? Is it about expert opinion, the value of expert opinion before the court? Or is it about the fundamental right aspect? So there are a lot of things around the particular judgment. It's a 128 pages long judgment. There are a lot of things happening there. So you first need to understand what do you want to know. It's only when you understand what you want to know that you will understand what you want to read. So the first question is, what do you want to know? It's very simple. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? It's make sure that whatever you're writing for, the first step is you're clear with your question. What are you looking for? This is again as not an individual process. It is not something that you start. Okay, I want to know this. I start with it. This is not like a initial step and you stop with it. You get an idea on, you think about something that you like, you want to talk about this and you want to write about it, and you want to talk about the fundamental right aspects of the hijab controversy, and you now have something that you want to know. So once you have it, how do you find things? Now the next problem is, you have a question with you. Now you have to find the elements or the materials to get it. So that is knowing what to read. Knowing what to read basically means getting the materials. This includes collecting the key points. If you know that it is about the, you want to analyze the fundamental rights perspective, you have to look at the Indian Constitution, you have to look at the similar case laws, you have to look into the any articles that has been written. So these are the key areas, and this would be, say for example, fundamental rights and hijab. Or you like to know what exactly is hijab. Hijab, niqab is again another topic entirely. So you want to know that. So you identify the keywords that's relevant to you. So that's second step. The third step is material search. In the next slide, we'll see how to do this. But then the third stage is searching for these materials. While you are doing it, it is always you have a selection bias. A selection bias is when you are biased towards certain points. So it is very common. It is very human to have subjective views on things. But your subjective views should not always come into your writings. It is okay to have a stance. It is okay to use articles, materials that substantiate your stance. I don't prescribe to a mechanism where you go neutral, you go blad with your statements. It is not your duty to state relevant facts and say, so this is the part A and this is part B. You decide. It is your duty to compare and contrast and take a stance. But then when you're taking up these stands or when you're taking up materials, make sure that there is no selection bias. Make sure that you are taking materials from all points. You are considering relevant materials from everywhere. It might be contrary to you. Use that text. If there is a wrong interpretation to that text, point it out in your articles or your writings. Use these opposite viewed or the critically or something that is not relevant to you or something that is totally opposite to your views. Use these, incorporate these materials into your writing. So in order to do that, make sure that you don't stick with selection bias, or you don't get biased. You don't take materials on your personal biases, religious bias, whatever kind of political affiliations, economical affiliations. Don't do it. Use those materials, use the opposite materials to incorporate to your particular reading. So this is the first stage of effective reading. Once I this is probably the easier, the toughest, and the ongoing process of any kind of effective reading. You don't do this step and stop there, because this is a continuous in process. I said in the first slide, if you remember, I kept a repeat there, because this is happening, like you keep doing it. It is only when you keep doing it you get through a final very ultimate, the crux, or the best result out of it. So this is how you, the first stage of effective reading is to knowing what to do, what to read. The next stage, again, how do you get this information? Again, we'll talk about the next stages in the coming slides, but let's talk about how do you get these relevant informations. So in any kind of information, we have primary sources, secondary sources. Primary sources are sources that which has original documents, like the constitution is a primary document. We have legislations, which is a primary source. We have judgments, precedents, that's a primary source. Then government documents, which is again a primary source. We have certain commission reports and all that. Those are primary sources. You can use, or it's always advisable to use the primary source, unless and until you don't find the materials in your primary source. Then only rely on secondary sources. Secondary sources are journal articles, books, research reports. For example, we have there is a center called South Asia Studies. So they publish annually published reports. So these are reliable sources, and that's a reliable in IPR sessions. So South Asian Center. So those are secondary sources, but always rely on primary sources and try to build your arguments on primary sources. It's of course impossible to have an article or journal which is exclusively based on primary sources, because we are all standing on the shoulders of giant. We are building on what has been already built. So when Ms. Sinya was talking about plagiarism, she said, how do you take things from the existing work? How do you make sure that it is not something that is a copy or something? So it is inevitable. We cannot move with critical reading or critical writing without working into the secondary sources. But ensure that these sources are credible. Ensure that these sources are taken from from sources that are credible, from the authors are credible. Personally, I won't suggest using IP leaders or some other websites like that. Don't do it, because we have a lot of authentic free data sources in India, where you can get more credible, more reliable sources. I have faced I have seen many wrong articles there, so wrong information being passed in those. Some I'm not being saying that only I played is wrong or something, but there are many Indian and foreign websites where you find wrong information. So make sure that whatever you are ascribing to, make sure that the authors are they have a good profile, or they are credible authors. All right. So where do you find this information? So I'm saying this, I'm telling you, okay, you have to find, you know what to find. Now let's go to find it. Where do you actually find it? In older times, we used to rely on the books, libraries. When I did my PG, I mean my UG in Government Law College, Kozhikode, the only source most of us relied on textbooks. Sometimes maybe the AR or some reporters like that, but mostly that. I did not at that time had any exposure towards the online sources. It's only when I joined for my PG here at KISAR in 2017, I came to know a lot of online free sources that would help you to get things faster. So most of them here listed in this particular slides are free. There are something like a Heen Online, Advanced, Lexis Nexus, and all, which is paid. I get the access from my university. Otherwise, Google Scholar is totally free. The digital library is totally free. We have the India status free, archives or is free. Their store requires you to log in, but they provide up to 100 articles per day. You don't have to pay anything for that. PRS India is again like for the legislature, for the for your rules, acts, and all. Shodh is vast well of knowledge. LI India is also again India Code project. These till the India Code, these are the websites, or these are the sources where you can get online materials. Then there are some websites which has already done the work for you. So sometimes you need to gather informations. Sometimes when you are writing an article, or writing even if you are writing for the assignment here for the your LJRF internship voice internship program, you might need some data which is not a major part of your research, but then it would aid your research. So there are sites like this Project 39A, Viti Legal Policy, South Center, TWN is Third World Network. So these groups are they are research institutions. They are credible research institutions. They have already done works. They have already collected data. They have already done. I'll show you something. Um, you can see me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you a website. I'll show you this constitutionalprojects.org. This is interesting for as a person who had been working in especially in research. These websites are interesting for me also, because a lot of work I do is collecting data and analyzing these data. So when I get an opportunity to do it, to find things, easier access to them, it does a lot of good for me. So this is the page. You can see this, right? You can see this. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think it might be my network.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So, okay. So this is the Constitute project page. So there is a session here called Data Stories. So you find data here. You find data of this is countries, constitutions. Mhm. There is a data here. It's an interesting data. I had bookmarked it, but then my phone, all these things got. All right. So they have a list of these constitutions across globe, including the Afghanistan constitution. They actually provide a data on how free your country is, or how I'm trying to find this. Oh my God. Oh, trying to find where I um, there are articles here. There are also, yeah, here it is, timeline of constitutional ranking. This is an interesting data here. So what they have done is they combined the constitution of various countries. They have done research on the constitutions, and they have ranked these constitution on the length, executive's power. You will get the details on how this research is done on the website itself. But this is an interesting reading. If you're working on constitution law, this is an interesting page for you, because you get to compare a lot of things. You would have to do a lot of work in your time if it's not there. So there are websites like this which would help reduce your time and your efforts. So make sure that you use these online tools. All right. So you know what to read now. You know how to get these things. One thing you need to remember is that especially when you're using online tools, make sure that you are using keywords. Keywords are the most important things. It's almost like the SEOs, it's actually the SEOs. So make sure that you find the keywords. Keywords are important for online research tools. You get not just Google materials, articles, but you get books and all in these websites. So try finding them. So now you know where to get it. Now let's move on to academic reading. So you now have stuff with you. You have gone to the internet. You know what to do. You have collected material. Let's start reading it. So what is academical reading? It's different from your just, I think, Jessica, someone said you read it for pleasure, and I mean, the academic reading, you read for a purpose, you have more critical element into it. It's true, you have a more critical element to it. It is different from the normally established mechanism of reading. So it's a foundation of the learning, all kind of learning activities. It is the difference between academic reading and normal reading is that you, at the end of a 20-minute session, you feel exhausted. If you have someone who have at any point of time engaged in academical reading, you'll understand the statement. At the end of 20 minutes of reading, or even 15 minutes of reading, you feel yourself exhausted because you have been using your mind power for a long time. It's not just passive reading, it's reading what has been written, it's reading what is not written, and it is trying to dot or connect these dots on what exactly has been happening. So it's not just reading the textbook, highlighting the text or anything like that. This is a simple question. Everyone is asking you to read. I've been asking you to read if from day one, maybe from the day one of your school life, people are asking you to read. How do you read to write better? How do you read? How do I read things? This is very simple question. How do I read? All right. So let's try to find some kind of answer to this. Whatever I'm saying now is not a concrete set of path that you have to take to have effective reading. These are methods, technology, methods, modes that people before us, people has been researching on us on these topic has found. This might aid you. This is not like, okay, this is the only way to have an effective reading. This is not a session that will tell you that this is the only way to read it. These are some pointers, some techniques that you might have, be able to adopt. I can see the time. Let's fast it up. All right. So you can read critical reading. You can see critical reading in two. It's a two-way process. So I've been saying that you need to know what to read, then you have to read, and you have to again you can write this. So when we move on to reading, it's again I have again divided into two activities. It's a reading model and an active reading. So these things are two elements of critical reading. So the first element of critical reading is reading with grain. Do you know what is a grain? Anyone? Grain കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ ആരെങ്കിലും? GRAIN grain.
No, I'm not very familiar.
Okay. Anyone know, right? So grain is something നമ്മള് വുഡ് എടുക്കില്ലേ, മരത്തിന്റെ തടി എടുക്കുമ്പം മരത്തിന്റെ തടിയിൽ ചെറിയ നാര് പോലെ ഉണ്ടാവില്ലേ? നമ്മള് മരത്തിന്റെ വർക്ക് അല്ല, നമ്മള് ഒരു ആശാരിയുടെ അടുത്തൊക്കെ പോകുമ്പോൾ അവരുടെ അടുത്ത് പോകുമ്പോൾ ഒരു മരത്തിന്റെ തടി നമ്മൾ റാൻഡം പീസ് കാണുമ്പം ആ പീസ് നമ്മൾ ഒരു വുഡ് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നതെല്ലാം ചെറിയ ചെറിയ മരത്തിന്റെ വുഡ് ഇസ് ഇറ്റ് കോൾഡ് ചെറിയ മരത്തിന്റെ നാരാണ് ഗ്രെയിൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Okay, it's a pattern that you see on the woodworks. മനസ്സിലായോ? Did you get the point? Do you want me to show it to you? Do you? A wood grain is this. Okay? A wood grain is this. All these marks. these marks are not something that you have drawn it in. അത് നമ്മൾ തടിയുടെ മുകളിലുള്ള നാരുകൾ കൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ പാറ്റേൺ ഉണ്ടാവുന്നത്. ഈ നാരുകളെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഗ്രെയിൻസ്, ഈ കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റിൽ നമ്മൾ ഗ്രെയിൻസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, ഇതിന്റെ ഒരു പ്രത്യേകത തന്നെ, നമ്മൾ ആ ഗ്രെയിൻസ് ഏത് സൈഡിലേക്കാണോ ഇരിക്കുന്നത് ആ സൈഡിൽ വെച്ചിട്ട്, നമ്മൾ വീട്ടിലൊക്കെ മരം നമ്മൾ കത്തിക്കാൻ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന മരത്തടികളൊക്കെ ഇല്ലേ, അതെടുത്താൽ മതി. അത് ഏറ്റവും നല്ല എക്സാമ്പിൾ. ആ തടികളിൽ നമ്മൾ ഒരു സൈഡിലേക്ക് നമ്മൾ തലോടുമ്പം ഇറ്റ് വുഡ് ബി ലൈക്ക് ഈസി ആയിരിക്കും, നമ്മൾ പെട്ടെന്ന് നമുക്കത് കൈകൊണ്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ അതിന്റെ ഓപ്പോസിറ്റ് സൈഡിൽ നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ കുറച്ച് റെസിസ്റ്റൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. ഒരു കൈയിന്റെ മുകളിൽ ഒരു ചെറിയതായിട്ട് ഒരു ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട്. നിങ്ങൾ ആരും തടി കണ്ടിട്ടില്ലേ? മരത്തിന്റെ തടി കണ്ടിട്ടില്ലേ? നമ്മളിങ്ങനെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന കത്തിക്കാൻ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന മരത്തടികളൊക്കെ ഇല്ലേ, നമ്മള് നമ്മുടെ മാംഗോ ട്രീസിന്റെ മുകളിൽ നിന്നൊക്കെ വരുന്ന. No, nobody. You guys are very modern now. Hello.
No, ma'am. കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്.
No, I was thinking ഞാൻ ഇത്രയും ഓൾഡ് ഫാഷൻ ആയി പോയതുകൊണ്ടാണോ? Okay. So
അല്ല മാം, നമ്മൾ യൂഷ്വലി ഇങ്ങനെ കണക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതൊക്കെ കുറവല്ലേ. നമ്മള് എന്താണോ പെരിഫറലി കാണുന്നത് അതിനൊപ്പം അങ്ങ് പോകുന്നു, കടന്ന് അങ്ങനെ ആലോചിക്കാറില്ലല്ലോ. That's the problem.
That's a problem. That we hopefully at the end of the session we'll get a little idea on how to handle it. അപ്പം reading with grain is it's a technique in reading where you take a book and you read to find out what the author is saying. ഇത് പാസീവ് റീഡിംഗ് അല്ല. ഡോണ്ട് ടേക്ക് ഇറ്റ് ആസ് ഞാനൊരു പുസ്തകം എടുത്തിട്ട്, സേ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഐ വിഷ് ഐ ഹാഡ് എ ടെക്സ്റ്റ്, ഐ ഹാവ് കെപ്റ്റ് എ ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ബുക്ക് ഹിയർ, ബട്ട് വാട്ട് എവർ. ഞാനിപ്പം നമ്മുടെ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ എടുത്തിട്ട് ചുമ്മാ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷനിലെ ഇറ്റ്സ് വെരി ലൈക് സിനിയ വാസ് ടോക്കിംഗ് അബൌട്ട് ദി സക്സഷൻ ആക്ട്. അതിൽ ഡിസ്ക്വാളിഫിക്കേഷനെ പറ്റി നമ്മൾ സംസാരിച്ച്, നമ്മൾ ഡിസ്ക്വാളിഫിക്കേഷൻ സെഷൻ പറഞ്ഞ് നമ്മൾ പോയി. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് സ്റ്റെപ്പ്. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് കോൾഡ് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. Understanding what the author is talking about, understanding what he actually meant to convey. എന്താണ് ഈ പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ എഴുതിയ സാധനം മനസ്സിലാക്കുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഫസ്റ്റ് സ്റ്റെപ്പ്. ദിസ് ഇസ് കോൾഡ് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. ഓക്കെ, വൺസ് യു ഹാവ് ഡൺ ദാറ്റ്, ഇനിയാണ് ക്രിട്ടിക്കൽ റീഡിംഗ് തുടങ്ങുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, ആക്റ്റീവ് റീഡിങ്ങിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. നമ്മൾ എന്താണോ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത് അത് പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കുക. നിങ്ങൾ ഇത്ര എളുപ്പം എക്സാമിന് പഠിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യമായിട്ട് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. നമ്മൾ ഓതർ ഒരു പുസ്തകം എടുത്ത്, നമ്മളിപ്പം ബാങ്കി എടുത്തു, അല്ല അവതാർ സിംഗ് എടുത്തു, അവതാർ സിംഗിൽ കോൺട്രാക്ടിന്റെ അവതാർ സിംഗ് എടുത്തു, നമ്മൾ എസെൻഷ്യൽസ് ഓഫ് കോൺട്രാക്ട് പഠിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുക. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ എസെൻഷ്യൽസ് എലമെന്റ്സ് നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കുന്നു. ഇതാണ് എസെൻഷ്യൽ എലമെന്റ്, എസെൻഷ്യൽ എലമെന്റ് കൊണോട്ടേഷൻസ് ഇങ്ങനെയാണ്, കേസ് ലോസ് നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കുന്നു. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് കോൾഡ് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. നമ്മൾ വേറെ ഒന്നും ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല, നമ്മളൊന്നും ആഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. വി ആർ ജസ്റ്റ് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡിങ് വാട്ട് ദ ഓതർ ഇസ് സേയിങ്. നമ്മൾ പാസീവായി വായിക്കുകയല്ല, നമ്മളത് എന്താണ് എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റിൽ നമ്മളതിനെ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നു. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് കോൾഡ് റീഡിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഗ്രെയിൻ. അടുത്ത സ്റ്റെപ്പ് ഇതിന്റെ നേരെ ഓപ്പോസിറ്റ്, റീഡിംഗ് അഗെയിൻസ്റ്റ് ഗ്രെയിൻ. ഈ റീഡിംഗ് അഗെയിൻസ്റ്റ് ഗ്രെയിനെ ഇതാണ് ഇച്ചിരി കോംപ്ലിക്കേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രൊസീജിയർ. ഈ റീഡിംഗ് അഗെയിൻസ്റ്റ് ഗ്രെയിൻ ഉണ്ടാകുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ കുറച്ച് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ ഈ റീഡിംഗ് അഗെയിൻസ്റ്റ് ഗ്രെയിൻ ചെയ്യാം. ആരാ അത് എഴുതിയത്? ഹു റോട്ട് ഇറ്റ്? When did he write it? What is the intended audience? Does it link with the other material you have studied in the module? Why do you think it was written? It's an excerpt from a long piece of writing text. What is the context of his particular? Sometimes when I was talking about bias, selection bias, these things is relevant here also. Who wrote it? So when you're talking about, I'll talk about some example here. Intellectual property rights have samsarikkumbol, when you're trying to find out intellectual why we have IP rights, and you try to justify IP rights, reading someone from some author who has been funded from a company, say for example ഒരു musical company fund ചെയ്ത writer ആണെങ്കിൽ ആൾ എഴുതുന്നത് obviously biased ആയിരിക്കും. So it is not, you can only take it with a pinch of salt. You cannot take it as it കണ്ണും പൂട്ടി. നമ്മൾ ഇപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ LLBക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന സാധനം, I'm not saying ഞാൻ എല്ലാവരും കൂടി പറയല്ല, പക്ഷെ normally that is what happening. We take it for granted. We take it, this is the end of the things എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് നമ്മൾ എടുക്കും. So when you go to the next stage, you ask who wrote it, what is his background, when did he write it, why did he write it, Is there any kind of connected documents relevant to it? Was he funded by someone else? Why? What was his purpose for conveying it? This author namul. In next question is, when you are looking into the content itself, ask this: is it trying to support some other content? ഇതിന് ഓപ്പോസിറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പല വ്യൂസ് ഉണ്ട്. If when you're talking about IP, or when you're talking about ഇപ്പം പ്രൊബേഷൻ ലോസിനെ പറ്റി നമ്മൾ സംസാരിക്കുകയാണ്. പ്രൊബേഷൻ ലോസിനെ സംസാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ we have theories of punishments. അപ്പം റിഫോർമേറ്റീവ് തിയറിയും റെട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ തിയറീസിലും ഇത് ഈ ഒരു പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവ് എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമുക്ക് റെട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ തിയറിയിലുമായിട്ട് കോൺട്രഡിക്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇത് സപ്പോർട്ടീവ് ആണോ? അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, യു ആർ ആസ്കിങ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് to yourself. It's almost like conversing with the book itself, or the author itself. So this is how you do you read against the grain. You look for points like most important, in contrast. On other hand, and you not only you look to the text and look behind you see behind the text. That is the most important part of any kind of critical reading. Effective reading undavane either article anil whatever it is, in order to have an effective reading you have to follow this. All right, you need to see behind what is a political affiliation. This is not this is very important to have to know what is the political affiliation of this person, what is the ideology of this person. Is he an unbiased person? The relevancy of those things, whatever he is saying, whether there is any counter argument, has he tried to address any counter arguments here? Has he successfully done it? But why? Keep asking that. This is called reading against grain. This critical reading in the important perspective. The next thing you have to practically do is to be an active reader or actively reading is to engage with the text. You engage with the text is simple. You might be reading materials from online PDF files use ചെയ്യില്ല. PDF files use ചെയ്ത് വായിക്കുമ്പോൾ ഈ വായിക്കുന്നതിൽ നമ്മൾ മാർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഇപ്പം annotation ചെയ്യാന്ന് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ സീനിയർ. That's what's happening here. You mark the text. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവാത്ത mark what you don't understand, mark the words you don't understand, mark the sentences you don't agree with. ഇതൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ ഇനീഷ്യൽ 2 റീഡിങ്സ് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ഫസ്റ്റ് സെക്കൻഡ് റീഡിംഗിൽ നമ്മൾ വരുന്ന സാധനം. You mark stuff എന്നിട്ട് you write on the side, you write in the margins like okay ഇതാണ് okay, you have a contradictory view to this, or you maybe summarize what have you understand on the particular text. This particular polish, this point that engaging with the text and marking the text is actually making the text yours. Nammalor book, either book or like whatever article you take it is not yours. It is a lot of words from the author. So what you are going to do is you are taking the book, you are going to read it. You find some words you don't understand. Okay, this I don't understand this. What's the meaning of this? Mark it. Whatever it is, use different colors for this purpose. I did take up a particular PDF to show how it is done, but you understand the crux of the matter. It's also interesting or always important to have intermediate writing. The process of effective reading is only complete if you are engaged in the process of writing. It goes together like this. When I was talking about collecting data, I said it don't end there. You collect the data, you read it critically, you actively read it, you use these text markers, etc. You engage in those works, you try to read it with the grain, try to read it against the grain, whatever it is, you try to do it. And you find doubts there, you find points there, then you go back again to your materials, you go back to get these materials, you go out to find these resources that supports you, and you read it again and you get back to it. This is an ongoing a chain process. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. We are almost time's almost up. So I'll tell you some relevant points. When this is a technique, I'll talk to you about 2 techniques in active reading. Scaffolding is one, and we have SP3R technique. Scaffolding is creating a file of whatever you have read. It is easy. I wanted to do this as a part of this exercise, but I don't think we'll have time right? We are almost there. Oh, time is time is running against us. Okay, scaffolding is basically you take a Word document, you write the heading of the or the title of the topic, and that you write the headings, the subheadings of each topic. And when you are reading it, whatever you find striking, key areas, key points you find striking, you copy paste from it from the article you are reading and paste it on the paste it onto your Word file. എന്നിട്ട് you should mark ഏത് പേജിലാണ് ഇത് എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത്, ഏത് പേജിൽ ഏത് പാരഗ്രാഫിലാണ് ഇത് ഇരിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് മാർക്ക് ചെയ്യാം. ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു സ്ട്രക്ചർ ഉണ്ടാക്കുക. ദിസ് ഇസ് സംതിങ് that is useful for every time that you read, so that next time നിങ്ങൾ പോകുമ്പോൾ you don't need to go back to the original document because you have a summary or something called a scaffold note here. So this is almost like a personal index, so that നാളെ നിങ്ങൾ എഴുതാൻ പോകുമ്പോൾ do this only for relevant documents. Again, എല്ലാം വെറുതെ വായിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കരുത്, relevant documental മാത്രം scaffold notes ഉണ്ടാക്കി എടുക്കാം. Okay, this is one method you can employ. The second method is SP3R technique. This is reading intensive ആയിട്ടുള്ള technique. What do you do is that first stage of an article കിട്ടി, how do you read it? You take article, you survey it, in the summary വായിക്കുക, you read the abstract, you read the first sentences, and then you find you'll get a feel of it. One of my problem is that I have this urge to read the whole article. I don't like skimming it, but this is the most when I try to read like this, it saved me a lot of time. It's especially important when especially important for a PhD scholar to have to save their time. So this is what happens. You take the work, you read the summary, you find it relevant to you, you take it. You don't find it relevant to you, leave it. So do that as an initial stage. The next stage is to it's SQ3R. There is small spell error here. So in the second step, you question. You ask, like we have talking about again, when you're doing something like again reading against the grain, you ask these similar things. What is the passage about? Why does this passage exist? Or what is the question in this passage trying to answer? What's the key areas? ഇത്രയും basic questions, like നമ്മുടെ reading against the grain നമ്മൾ ചെയ്ത questions ആണ് ഇവിടെ വീണ്ടും you try to ask these questions. Okay, and the third stage is a third step is 3 R's. Third, fourth, and fifth is 3 R's. You read, you underline. നിങ്ങൾ skim ചെയ്ത് you find it relevant. You find the context of stuff here. Then you start reading. You underline, like നമ്മൾ making text, active reading part ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ making the text your own, marking the text എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ you underline, you circle the work, make quick notes in the margin and all. എന്നിട്ട് നമ്മൾ what do? You recite, you summarize stuff. ഈ scaffolding note you can next step would be to write a summary on yourself. You can use many techniques for the summarization and all. Then you review what has been written, what is exactly doing, what, like the whole context the passage and review ചെയ്യാം. This is a technique. This is not particularly something that you have to follow, but this would help you to read faster. How long do we have? Do you mind if let me take 10 minutes? I'll conclude in 10 minutes. Okay, is that okay with you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so whenever you're reading, whatever you're reading, keep this point in mind. What is it? Why is that? So what? Either is relevant not for you when you're reading, but also relevant when you are writing. നിങ്ങളുടെ assignment articles എഴുതുമ്പോൾ പോലും what am I saying, or what have I read? Why is it said so? So what's the relevance of it? Keep answering these, keep asking these questions to get more content, more relevant content. Another part of in critical reading is to have intermediate writing. Let's skip this thing. Let's not get into those things. So the key things that you have to keep in mind when you are engaging in an effective reading is to first know the purpose of reading. It should uh, obviously, why are you reading? Whatever you are reading is important, because upper matrame, when you're reading it, you get key points. If randomly ഒരു പുസ്തകം വായിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ആർട്ടിക്കിൾ വായിക്കുന്നതും നമ്മൾ പേർപ്പസ് ഫുൾഫിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി ആർട്ടിക്കിൾ വായിക്കുന്നത് രണ്ടും രണ്ടാണ്. സോ കീപ് ഇൻ മൈൻഡ് ദ പേർപ്പസ് ഓഫ് റീഡിങ്. Then again you scan it. നമ്മൾ സമ്മറി, നമ്മൾ ആബ്സ്ട്രാക്റ്റും മറ്റും നമ്മൾ സ്കേഫോൾഡിംഗ് നോട്ട് ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടൊക്കെ നോക്കുന്ന പോലെ you scan it effectively and efficiently, read paragraphs, summaries. This reading as a conversation with a writer is very important and interesting concept in reading effectively. It basically means that when you are writing, you are conversing with the writer. So ഞാനിപ്പം പറയുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായില്ലെങ്കിൽ you will ask me, can you please repeat, or could you please explain it? This is exactly what is happening when you are reading. You are reading along with reading the text as if you are in a conversation with the writer. So when a writer says something, you mark here, you give a small arrow and say why, or isn't this something different from how is this different from the already existing notion of X, or didn't Mr. Y contradict your statement? So these things you annotate it in your text itself. Again, you summarize, note taking, hunting for ideas is something similar to finding the key words or key elements here. Keep questioning, writing in the margin, highlighting the interesting sessions. One thing I have always seen, I have also done this mistake, you keep highlight everything because you find everything relevant. That is not critical reading. You can do passive reading and highlight stuff, but that won't be the most relevant part of what you have done. So always highlight relevant things. Too much highlighting is not the answer. It's going to cause a lot of trouble and confusion. That is, let's stop with that. We are by and large above our time. So these are key takeaways. We have another tools and all. That's